So this is Diana Caramanico. She attended the University of Pennsylvania and was an incredible basketball player there. She is still the leading scorer in men and women's basketball, 2,415 career points in total. And she is in the Hall of Fame at the University of Pennsylvania. She, in addition, has started a business called Corpus Mensque, which is body and mind in Latin. And I'm going to listen to her talk more about it.
So the business I started quite a while ago, about 10 years ago or so, I thought I was going to do basketball lessons for kids. And I was going to run camps and clinics and do the physical on-court training when I came back from playing in France. And I realized very quickly that the more I did that I was not coaching physical skills. I was helping them get over their fear of failure or these beliefs they had that were not accurate about, whether how good they were or whether they were going to be able to do it. And it just seemed like I was spending so much time on the mental skills that anybody could teach them the physical skills, and I really found a lot of sort of enjoyment, and it was really rewarding to help somebody overcome like a mental obstacle rather than, a physical obstacle, like maybe their elbow's out too far or they're not jumping high enough or something. So I sort of shifted gears and I started doing resilience training and mental toughness training for athletes. And I found a program at the University of Pennsylvania that is called Positive Psychology that had a real sort of process and method and science behind the stuff that I had been teaching for a couple years at that point. So I went through that program and it was life-changing. And so now I do resilience programs primarily for athletes, but it could be for any group, so like nurses or business people or mothers or, and I do a lot of sort of coaching of parents of athletes to help them give the messages to their own kids that are going to help them be productive on the field or
for the consistency.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell me more about what resilience training means.
So resilience is sort of one of those words that's being thrown around a lot. And the training that I do is teaching specific skills and specific habits of mind. So, we're all aware of habits that we have physically, like, if you bite your nails or certain things you do in the morning to get ready, whatever those physical habits are. But we have mental habits, and those affect how we see things and how we have perspective on certain situations, and our beliefs about ourselves and about others. And sometimes we have beliefs that we don't even know we have, and they're affecting our actions and the way that we are reacting in the world. So to me, resilience is building really strong mental habits. And there's a lot of mindfulness wrapped up in that because you really have to be aware of what you're thinking. And a lot of us go through life just seeing and reacting and not being aware that it's actually our thoughts that are governing our emotions and our reactions. And so the training and the skill building is really a set of skills that allows you to focus on what is actually in your conscious mind and some things that aren't, and to then decide if that's working for you or not. And if it's not working for you, what are some real skills we can apply to get your thinking to be more productive.
That's awesome. So where do you start when you have an athlete who you think might be having these limiting beliefs that are affecting them on the court or something? How do you get them to start observing their mind or observing their thoughts?
Really just to tune in. So we have this running stream of conscious thought all the time, but we're not always tuned into it. It's like a radio station. The radio can be on in the background and you're not paying attention to what's going on necessarily if you're doing something else. But when you actively say, oh wait, what is that that's playing, you can hear it. It's the same thing in your mind. So, you might be having this thought like, oh man, it's really hot out here and I'm tired of sitting here, or I have this thing to do next, an hour from now and I don't know if I'm prepared for it, and oh yeah, we're going to dinner at my mom's house tomorrow, and all of those thoughts are running through your mind. So you just really have to consciously tune into them and see what they are. And that's really the beginning, just to be able to tune into those thoughts. And tuning into those thoughts then gives you control over your emotions.
Yeah.
And the thing that I loved about positive psychology is it's different from traditional psychology in that it can reach everybody, not just somebody that's having a problem. So positive psychology isn't just about eliminating the bad, which is sort of more traditional psychology, but it's also about adding good. So I love going into a team and working with a team because I can work with a team, and something I say is beneficial generally for everybody, whether they're having a problem or not.
Yeah.
So it's not always about, the kids or the athletes that are having some sort of issue.
Yeah.
But, it might just name a process for the athletes that aren't, so that in the future, if they are having that issue, they have a real set of skills or steps to sort of pull themselves out of that issue, or maybe they helps them avoid it altogether.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So talk to me about some of the strategies that you use to start getting people to pay attention to their thoughts and
Right.
take it off or onto the court.
So one of the key things to pay attention to is when you're reacting strongly to something, like if you're really angry about something or anxious about something, or even positive emotion, really grateful about something, or proud, or hopeful or optimistic, whatever it may be, sad or embarrassed, any of those. You pick those times and you then can back into what the thoughts are. So if you have, say there's an athlete that is struggling with, shooting, and they, in whatever their respective sport is, and or like serving in tennis or something, having them write stuff down and actually perform exercises on paper, even in the absence of another human, gives them perspective. So they write down, in particular sort of skills and exercises for different things, but they'll write down their thoughts and maybe their emotions and reactions, and sometimes it just takes writing it down to give them some actual space and perspective to look at it and say, oh, well, that's not really true, right? Or so, because they're seeing it from the outside in rather than, having already in there. Another potential way to help the athlete is to have them pretend that somebody that is one of their, people that they're not fond of, or that, is kind of like an enemy to them or a nemesis of some kind, say those things. So if if I say, oh man, I am so bad at foul shots. Well, like, that's truth when it's in my head, and like, I believe that's my belief.
Sure.
But like, if somebody out in the world, were to say to me, man, you're terrible at foul shots, well, like, I would be a little defensive about it. Like, what? Who are you to say I'm not good at foul shots? Like, how are you at foul shots? Let's talk about that, right? So suddenly when someone else is like accosting them with their own thought, whether it be somebody that they care for or not, we tend to defend ourselves whether that's true or not. And so, if it's something that you're going to really defend hard against and have all this evidence to back up, well, then it's not fair to like believe it when you say it to yourself, but like if somebody else says it, you're going to defend yourself. No, you defend yourself. That's not a productive thought. That's not something that, or just add the word yet.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not good at foul shots. That might be true. You might not be the best at foul shooting, but I'm not good at foul shots yet. Suddenly that little word just adds all this hope and optimism. Like, all right, yet, I'm not good at them yet. Okay, but I could be good at them, and let's see what I need to do to be good at them. And suddenly it's a whole shift from sad or anxious or angry or frustrated to hopeful and like looking forward rather than just sinking in on themselves and being upset.
Yeah, that's awesome. So like, what are you actually seeing happen, like when they make this realization, like, oh, I'm having this belief that is totally impacting my skills in one area or another? Like, how does it end up playing out? Like,
it's a good question. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, I kept talking. This is good.
Yeah.
You're doing good.
It's getting cold.
Yeah, I know.
I feel like I have goosebumps. Should I then move my arm position?
No, your arm's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm gonna harass that same question.
Okay.
I
Am I
feel so
sitting up?
short.
I feel so crunchy. I mean, I typically don't have great posture when I'm sitting, so it's probably.
I don't have great posture when I'm sitting either. I'm working on it.
I also feel a lot of gusting breezes through my shirt. So if something crazy happens, could you just cut that part out? I mean, nothing super crazy, but it's very windy.
Yep, yep.
There's not a lot of holding it in place.
Yep, yep. I learned quickly not to wear flowy shit.
You asked that same question that you were
Uh-huh.
on that line of thought.
Okay.
What was it? How does it play out?
Yeah, so when you're working with your athletes or whoever it is that you're working with, and somebody makes this realization, like, oh, I'm having a belief that is completely counterproductive, or it doesn't make any sense. How do you see, like, that transform into action? So, like, my
Right.
belief is now changed, and I'm now doing this differently.
Sure. So there's sort of like a little progression. First, it's I've got no idea what's going through my mind. I just know what is going on, what I can or can't do, and my reaction to it. Then it's I catch what's going on in my mind. I still have that. I'm having that thought, but now I'm aware of it, and I'm still having the same, sort of reaction and emotion afterward. Then it's I have the thought. I am aware that that's not productive, and I then try to apply a skill to change my thinking. And I do, but it doesn't necessarily, like it's kind of like fake it till you make it. Like I do it, I say the things I need to, or I go through the process in my mind to apply whatever skill we're talking about. And then but the effect is the same. And then I believe it, and it changes my production, or actions. And then there's this whole, confidence that comes from, but there's confidence that comes all along the way. So it's a really great way to develop a growth mindset, which is versus a fixed mindset. Fixed mindset, where success is concerned, it's this destination that I need to get to, and all these other people are there, and I'm just not there yet. Failure is something in the fixed mindset that you want to try to avoid.
Yeah.
In the growth mindset, it's important. It gives you information to figure out how to get to the next step.
Right.
As far as success goes in the growth mindset, to back up, success is just moving forward. Or, you will actually not reach success. You're just paying attention to incremental gains. Whereas with the fixed mindset and success, it's all this measuring. Am I there? Am I not? It's kind of all or nothing. So did I, get a hit in my baseball game, or did I not? Got a hit, success. Didn't get a hit, failed. Whereas, this is sort of a personal example with my own daughter. She played on this baseball team, and she was able to hit the ball. It's a pitching machine that pitches. She's 7. It pitches like 40 miles an hour. And in practice, she was able to make contact with the ball a little bit. And the first game comes, in the first minute, her first at bat. It's cold. She goes up to bat. The pitch comes in. She makes contact with but fouls it sort of bizarrely and unluckily off of her finger.
Oh.
The stitching of the baseball rips a chunk out of her finger.
Oh no.
And she got like one of those stingers where like her hand felt like it was broken for a second. It was cold out and rainy. And she was petrified to go up to bat from then on. And the whole season, she worked over and over and over again. We were in the backyard. We took her from like hitting a wiffle ball with a wiffle ball bat all the way to hitting a pitched ball, with a full swing. And she had to overcome that fear. And she worked so hard, and she was out there working every day. And the last game comes, and she had 3 at-bats, and she struck out on all 3 of them, but she was a lot closer than she had been in the previous ones. And she didn't get a hit.
Right.
So in the fixed mindset, that would be I failed. But in the growth mindset, it's I got 99% of the way there. I went all the way from panic, where holding a metal bat is concerned, all the way up to I'm hitting pitched balls hard with a metal bat, and I'm not afraid to hit the ball when it comes at me with the machine. I think if she had 1 or 2 more games, she probably would have done it. But you make sure that she understands, like, you succeeded. You you've come all this way. There's just this little bit left to go next season, and and then there'll be a new goal, like we're gonna get 2 hits in a game or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Whatever it is she wants our goal to be.
That's awesome.
So the whole growth mindset, back to the original question, was going through that progression of recognizing the thought, applying the appropriate skill, just because it doesn't affect immediately, but a lot of times it does have at least some measurable effect. But if it doesn't immediately, you still have that, you want to inject that growth mindset thought of, but I am moving forward. I caught the thought, I decided if it was helping me or harming me, I applied a skill, and I'll have people, like athletes, come back and say, you'll never believe it. I realized that what I was thinking, that thing that I keep thinking, and then I did the skill, and I still struck out or still missed the goal, but it was awesome. And just all of a sudden, they have this excitement and this hope and enthusiasm for the failure, what they would have called before a failure, but they see this in the light of success and the path that they've traveled, and it's just, right around the corner that it actually translates into results on the field. Sometimes that progression is 2 times, and sometimes it's like a couple weeks or whatever, but
Gotcha.
Getting them to see their gains is, helps them to feel success even when the action isn't quite there yet.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. Should we stop for a second, or are you good? Okay, so that's amazing. So, like, from what it sounds like, these skills aren't just applicable to athletes. You mentioned that you work with all different kinds of groups and all different kinds of people, and like really anyone can benefit from this sort of positive psychology approach, this growth mindset approach to life. For like anybody who's watching this who may or may not be having a problem, what do you think are some takeaways or some strategies that are really helpful to use?
So I actually just read an article this morning about there's some scientific research coming out that actually is linking people's happiness and fulfillment with their health and their genetics almost. And so like the epigenetics is this new thing that like your environment can affect your actual genes and what gets passed on. And there's some more and more robust research that has been replicated that shows that people that live a fulfilled life, that live a good life, good meaning fulfilled and happy, but not just in the pleasure-seeking hedonism kind of way, but in the like I feel valuable and that I have purpose and meaning. That actually has a real effect on things like cortisol and heart disease and inflammation, which we know cancer thrives in inflammation.
Yeah.
And so having a purpose and having something that you feel fulfills you, however small part, but just to have something like that can actually have a real impact on your health.
Yeah.
And so, whether it be knitting or, sometimes you walk around Philadelphia and you'll see trees with sweaters on them.
Yeah.
Or benches or things. And I'm looking around for some here and I don't see any, and you think, what a weird thing. Why would anybody want to put a sweater on a tree?
Yeah.
But for that person, that's an example, for that person, knitting something beautiful for other people to see and, to maybe decorate a park in a natural sort of environmentally friendly way is something that gives them real fulfillment. And you see more sweaters with trees with sweaters on them. It can really be anything, giving back to society in some way, or just reading a book for 20 minutes a day. So that is one thing that, to add some sort of meaning to your life, and it doesn't have to be some major undertaking, but just something that gives you pleasure and makes you feel like you have a meaning in your life. The other thing is we're sort of wired to notice the bad.
Yeah.
Because, if there's something dangerous like a goose or something walking through the park, at least in my case, right? You get that fight or flight response because you have to protect yourself. And so this has this response to negative stimuli, things that cause us to have negative emotion, fear or embarrassment. Like, we put our attention on that right away.
Yeah.
Because we need to try to make sure that it's for preservation of ourselves,
Yeah.
some aspect of ourselves, whether it be our dignity or our, actual human body, if we're talking about, an attacker or something, or a dangerous animal. So our body is wired, without us trying, we notice the negative things in our lives, the
Yes.
things that cause negative emotion. And so there's very, very sound research that shows that increasing positive emotion helps your health a little bit, but it also increases your well-being.
Yeah.
And so there's a very simple exercise that you just notice the things, at the end of the day at dinner, we say, what went well today? And we pick something, and then we say why that made us, like, my good thing today was I got to see my cousin Julie, and it made me feel good because we don't get to see each other that often, and it was fun to connect, doing something a little bit out of the ordinary for us. And everybody goes around, and just that, if that's practiced on a regular basis, can increase well-being. So
That's awesome. So I think,
Want to check the
yeah.
audio real quick to make sure we're good. Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
is that good?
I just want to make sure everything is recording.
Oh yeah.
This is all good. This is recording.
That's awesome. So I think that a lot of people refer to that as sort of like gratitude or like gratitude
Yes.
journals type things. So is that the same thing that you're talking about?
Yeah, I think I first came across the exercise when I was at Penn for doing the positive psychology, and there was this book. It was, positive psychology, like interventions that could increase your happiness and well-being. And I was so excited because it was like a choose your own adventure book. You had to answer these questions, and it sent you this part of the book. And I'm like going through this. I'm like, this is gonna be awesome. I'm gonna get some awesome newfangled, like tailored just for me exercise. And that's the one it landed on. And it was called the 3 blessings exercise. I'm like, oh man, I got that stupid 3 blessings exercise again. Like, I was waiting for this like awesome one.
Yeah.
And I realized and then part of the assignment was you had to carry it out for the month. And I realized at the end, like, wow, what an awesome thing. It's quick. It doesn't take any time or materials, or I can do it as I walk around. It can be like doing it while, and it's a really good connector of our family. The kids look forward to sharing what went well during their day. And what ends up happening is, like, some people are like, oh man, like, I don't know what to pick. Nothing good happened today. It's the worst. But then if you like force yourself into it, and those are the people that are a little more pessimistic thinkers on the, but as you do it, those same people that I have, done this with, they are able then to, as they're going through on their day, like, because the stress of not being able to think of something at the moment is enough that it causes them during their day to notice, oh, wow, it's beautiful here and the birds are chirping and it just really is nice to be out here in nature. I'm going to use that tonight. And then it just creeps into your day, and you start noticing in real time the things that were good or that went well that made you feel positive emotion. And then it's sort of an unconscious process, and it is easy to pick something at night to share from because you have all these examples. But if you don't work on gathering those examples throughout your day, you are letting your natural inclination to pick up the negative affect your well-being.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I mean, sorry, I'm like struggling to find the question because that's all really interesting and great stuff. And I feel like a lot of people are going to say, what does this have to do with basketball? Or what does that have to do with my yoga practice? Or what does that have to do with my job? You know what I mean?
Like the happiness thing?
Yeah, like how does it play into an actual thing?
Sure. Well, so when you experience a negative emotion, there's certain physiological things that occur with, your heart rate and your blood pressure and sweating and different things. That's that fight or flight response.
Yeah.
So we know now scientifically that positive emotions undo the physiological effects of negative emotions. So if you're able to experience a positive emotion in some way, it brings you out of that negative emotion enough that maybe you are able to think more clearly about what you're trying to think about. In yoga, it's a lot about mindfulness and keeping your mind on your breathing or your balance or something that you're supposed to be thinking about.
Yeah.
Not a
Breath, mostly.
I'm not like a yoga expert, but it seems like that's what's going on. And so if you're able then to focus in on those certain things, you know, those negative emotions that creep in, you're able to sort of undo them, you know, the physiological effects of those, and be more relaxed.
Yeah.
And you know, when we are in a more positive frame of mind, we're more focused on the outside. So there's a woman named Barbara Fredrickson, who did a lot of research on this broaden and build theory, where, you know, emotions are actually contagious, and they spiral upward or downward depending on what kind of emotion you're talking about.
Yeah.
And she also had some research that showed that positive emotions are actually not nearly as powerful as negative emotions. So a negative, you need like about 3 positive emotions to balance out a negative one, which, you know, she said that it's about a 3-to-1 ratio in strength from positive to negative.
Yeah.
You know, the negative emotions are powerful, and they'll sink you if you don't balance that out.
Yeah.
Either health-wise or just, you know, walking around in a miserable cloud all the time is, you know. The other thing too is, you know, we sometimes at home we play the bad news, good news game. And it's, you know, what didn't go well today?
Yeah.
And, you know, what didn't go well, you know, I think one time Joanna said it rained and we didn't get to go out for recess. And I was like, oh man, I was like, well, what's the good news about the bad news? And she was like, well, but we got to play with all these toys that we almost don't ever get to play with because they're toys, they're not like school things, but they're not, you know, and so, but because we were inside, we got to play with these toys that we hadn't seen before. So she was suddenly excited about the good news that came out of the bad news. And so we've noticed like that, like if she receives a consequence for not listening or something, she very quickly was like, well, that's okay because I really wanted to, you know, it's hard to get her down, which is great. And we know that optimism is the engine of resilience. So that optimism really fuels your ability to look on the brighter side or know that, you know, you're going to get through it and it's just going to be murky right now. So developing optimism is sort of key.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I think what you're saying about resilience is like you're using these strategies and you're training your mind to prepare you for these real life situations, and when they come up, you can face them a little bit better.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Diana, for talking with me about. Yeah, I loved hearing all about your work, and yeah, it's very informative and helpful.
No, I love talking about it. So thanks for having me. It was great to talk to you.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Chris.